Welcome to the inside of Nissan Stadium here in Nashville, Tennessee, host to the second running of the Music City Grand Prix. This is a special event the first reason is that it's a big event, probably upwards of, maybe I shouldn't estimate crowds anymore. We'll just say it's going to be a big crowd on Sunday. It should look really good and feel like a big event. But more importantly, or not more importantly, but important to me is that this is the 1 year anniversary, the 1 year event anniversary of the first IndyCar race. I was a credentialed member of the media, so it's really been cool to get to do this for a whole year. Obviously, I've been credentialed to other races and other series before, and even practice days for IndyCar, but nothing quite like the access I've been given over the last year. And I hope the content has been good, and I hope you appreciate it. And I hope you listened to me on IndyCar radio this morning for practice, because those guys really stick their neck out on the line to put me on the radio, so I appreciate that. Busy day. Obviously, there's only one practice session today, and we'll look at the results of that in just a second, but this is silly season. Actually, it's crazy season. Silly is just too light of a word for what has been going on in IndyCar racing and really across the world of automobile racing. So in this video, I will be breaking down what I consider to be all of the available seats in IndyCar for 2023 and the possibilities that may be behind the wheel when we get to St. Pete in 2023, which seems like a lifetime away. So let's take a look at the top 5 in practice today, because it's pretty interesting, or a pretty interesting mix, I should say, of youth and experience. So Christian Lundgaard, who finished second at Indianapolis, and some people would say he finished first, at least the first legal car, at a 1:15.9. That's some 0.3 of a second faster than second place Felix Rosenqvist, who was the pole sitter at Indianapolis. A couple of mechanical gremlins kept him from potentially challenging for a win at Indianapolis, but Rosenqvist is in the news for a lot more things than just that. David Malukas continues an impressive rookie campaign. 2 of the top 5 are rookies. Scotty McLaughlin in his second run here at the Music City Grand Prix in the Dex Imaging car. That car was pretty fast at St. Pete. And Joseph Newgarden rounds out the top 5, the hometown hero, who will be looking certainly to have a good points day after the tough one in Iowa, but a good bounce back in Indianapolis. And if Newgarden wins here, he's definitely in the championship fight. All right, so let's talk silly season, because this is the silliest of all the silly seasons for sure. So I think there's going to be about 28 cars full-time next year. That would be fully subscribed. And what does that mean? Well, Honda and Chevy claim that they can only do a certain amount of engines full-time. Both manufacturers, generally speaking, can do about 18 for the Indianapolis 500. So when we start talking about the Indianapolis 500, throw some of these limits out of the window. There'll be more engines for the Indianapolis 500. But for just the IndyCar series for next year, Honda is hard set on 15. They currently provide 15 engines, by the way. We'll be getting to that because one team's going to be expanding. One team will probably have to cut. And Chevy, only 13. I say only, it's only 2 behind Honda, but Chevy will be capped at 13 cars for next year, should they need to, of course. There could be a situation in which Honda and Chevy provide less than 13 and 15, but that seems to be the number right now, and that, of course, would get us to 28 full-time cars. The easy one, at least easy on the surface, you never know. There's always a rumor, I'll put it this way, of a 4th Penske car. Maybe at the 500, I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see. Joseph Newgarden, Scotty McLaughlin, Will Power. That will not change in 2023. Now, 2024, Will Power, that will be a story for another time, because I think that's when his current contract ends. But he's running so good right now, or so well right now, why would you quit? But then again, maybe you would want to go out on top. We'll talk about that next year. Chip Ganassi Racing is where things start to get very interesting, because when I spoke to Honda, asked specifically, how hard and fast is your 15 engine limit? And it's very hard and fast. And so when I say, well, why do I hear that Dale Coyne is going to expand? Spoiler alert. What was said to me was another team could make a cut. I believe that Chip Ganassi Racing is one of the teams that could cut out a car. And there are two possibilities there. The two possibilities that will not be going away next year are Scott Dixon in the 9 and Marcus Ericsson in a number. And let me explain why. The other two that are currently driving full-time for Chip Ganassi Racing are, of course, Jimmy Johnson and Alex Palou. Jimmy Johnson is a question mark only because who's going to pay for it? Will Carvana be back for another year? If so, will it be a full season, or will it be a part-time, maybe oval only, maybe select events? Jimmy kind of said something about, maybe I'm doing a little too much right now. We'll have to see. If it is oval only, then the question mark also shifts to what is happening with the 10 car, and that's been the question that everybody has had. This is how I feel about it. It's totally dependent on how the Alex Palou case goes. I believe that Alex Palou is going to lose to Chip Ganassi Racing in court. Now, what does that mean? Well, there's several possibilities. He may still be an employee of Chip Ganassi Racing, but Chip may sit him. He may be an employee of Chip Ganassi Racing and will have to race. He may not be an employee of Chip Ganassi Racing, and he may not be able to race. Or he may not be a Chip Ganassi employee and may be able to go drive for Arrow McLaren SP next year, which seems to be all of a sudden finally where people are saying, yes, that's where Alex Palou will go if McLaren does indeed actually get to hire him. But I think that's the least likely of the scenarios, at least as things stand right now. I have a feeling that Chip is going to make darn sure that he is not driving for another IndyCar team next year. But again, we'll have to see. It's all speculation at this point until we have a ruling. But I think at the end of the day, if Honda needs to cut a car, it would make sense that you could cut the 10 car. And then you focus totally on Dixon and Ericsson and Jimmy and maybe Tony Kanaan at the Indianapolis 500. That would seem to be the obvious cut, at least right now. The other obvious cut might come from Andretti Autosport. Now, they're locked in for their first 3 drivers, those being Colton Herta, whose contract comes up at the end of next year, and of course, he's also in the Zach Brown lottery, it seems, for Formula One. Romain Grosjean, who's there, and Kyle Kirkwood, the recent addition, who will be driving the Auto Nation 27. No mention of Napa anywhere in regards to Kyle Kirkwood for next year. I believe that Napa is on the way out. So, the 29 car, currently driven by Devlin DeFrancesco. Now, there are conflicting reports as to exactly what is going on and why suddenly the 29 car seems to be on the table in silly season. There's been some rumors that the payments have stopped. There have been, I think, fairly substantiated reports that the performance level isn't right there. With the dysfunction at Andretti Autosport, the question becomes, do you cut the 29 car and focus on 3 drivers and only 3 egos? The other possibility, of course, would be you keep Devlin or you cut Devlin and you put an Indy Lights driver in that seat. One Indy Lights driver who swears up and down to me that he is not going to be driving an IndyCar next year also said to me that he expects 3 different Indy Lights drivers to be driving next year in IndyCar, current Indy Lights drivers. So make of that what you will. Andretti Autosport has a lot of Indy Lights drivers. Pick one. Ed Carpenter Racing. This is the most cut and dry because 2 of the 3 drivers are signed right now, and a third one I think is getting well on her way. Rinus VeeKay signed this week, got away from all of the drama, stuck with Ed Carpenter because Ed has been really good to him, and I think loyalty will reward him in the end. And Connor Daly, his sponsor paid money up front for 2 years, so like Connor said, I think those papers mean something. So Connor Daly, lock him in for next year. The third car seems to be that it will be Paretta Autosport and Simona Di Silvestro. And I would hazard a guess that there'll be a 4th car for Ed Carpenter at select oval events next year. Simona is a big favorite, and Paretta Autosport is a big favorite of Chevy. Chevy loves that team. When they announced that they were coming back to the series, there was every Chevy executive you could possibly think of at the press conference, and that never happens. So I absolutely believe that Chevy is going to make Paretta Autosport a thing for next year. Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. This is something that I didn't think would be in play or a team that could be an option for drivers, but all of a sudden, I think it is. Bobby Rahal recently came out with and mentioned that he had some health problems. He'd had a heart attack recently. There is a press conference on Sunday, which I am not privy to the details of. I don't know what it contains yet. But Graham Rahal has started talking decidedly more like a team owner in recent years. Are they announcing that Graham Rahal will be taking over a large portion of Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan on Sunday? And if that's the case, does Graham continue driving? I think it's a legitimate question. I'll ask it and we'll see where it goes. But if Graham steps away or steps back into a part-time role or something, that 15 seat might be up for grabs. You want to get even more crazy? Remember all the Alpine drama just a couple of days ago? What happens if they tap Christian Lundgaard, who is highly connected still to the Alpine Formula One team? What happens if they move him up into the second Formula One seat? He's certainly performing all of a sudden. He was P1 today. So the 30 car could be available. And what about the 45? I'm beginning to hear talk about lack of satisfaction with the performance of Jack Harvey. Now, I do think that Hy-Vee, the sponsor, likes him, but the performance is the performance, and it's not been stellar this year. Do they invest in another year of Jack? Or, if Felix Rosenqvist becomes available, do you go and get him? I don't know. Speaking of Arrow McLaren SP, supposedly, allegedly, Pato O'Ward and Alexander Rossi are two of the three drivers locked in at Arrow McLaren SP next year. Felix Rosenqvist? Well, Racer Magazine reported, last night, that Felix may not actually have a contract with Arrow McLaren SP, at least signed. He could have an option to go to another team other than Arrow McLaren SP in IndyCar. Or he could go to Formula E with McLaren. Those are all options to him. I think Felix Rosenqvist might actually be the smartest man in the room because he's the only McLaren driver who is perhaps agreed on principle but not actually signed something. So he can't get screwed. He actually holds the cards in some way because Zach Brown can either decide to use him or decide not to use him, and Felix can kind of make that decision, or seemingly can make that decision for himself. When he was asked about it in the press conference, he specifically said, that's between me and Zach. So he didn't give us any details about the contract, but what he did say was IndyCar is his priority, not Formula E, and he did not close the possibility of driving for a different IndyCar team next year. I think Felix Rosenqvist will be in IndyCar, whether it's for McLaren or whether it's not. And it's very much dependent on what happens with the Alex Palou lawsuit and if Alex Palou is made available to Arrow McLaren SP. Meyer Shank Racing, this is really easy. Simon Pagenaud, Elio Castroneves, you probably shouldn't expect any difference there. Dale Coyne Racing. Sounds like they're going to stick with their two drivers that they currently have, Takuma Sato and David Malukas. And HMD, Henry Malukas, is going to expand to a third car, almost certainly for Linus Lundqvist, who's going to be the Indy Lights champion. That will be bolstered by the Indy Lights scholarship money, and also should be helped by whether it's Ganassi, whether it's Rahal, whether it's Andretti, cutting a car from that 15-car Honda limit. Juncos Hollinger Racing. Callum Ilott recently signed an extension. He's locked into that team. The team told me specifically at the press conference that they intend to do a second car. Now, it has to work financially, but they've already been testing Indy Lights driver Benjamin Peterson. I think Peterson is one of those Indy Lights drivers who will be in IndyCar next year. Will it be for Juncos or will it be for Foyt? AJ Foyt Racing, I would expect to be 2 cars full-time next year. Now, that's contingent on how legitimate that Porsche GTP program is. Does Foyt go IMSA Racing? Do they cut back to 1 IndyCar? Do they keep 2 IndyCars in Indianapolis and run the sports car out of Texas? I don't know. But I think Benjamin Peterson has been seen, I don't think I know, Benjamin Peterson has been seen a lot around the AJ Foyt team. One would think that that would be an option for him. I'll even throw out another interesting option. If Peterson goes to Juncos Hollinger Racing, and let's say Devlin DeFrancesco is out in Andretti, what's stopping Devlin from going over to Foyt and creating Team Canada with Dalton Kellett? I don't know. It's going to be a crazy offseason, but the good news is it does seem like we are going to have an increase in cars next year, and essentially we're going to max out Honda and Chevy. And then you start thinking, hey, if there's another manufacturer out there, not holding my breath on that one, but how big could the fields be if there was another engine supplier? I don't know, but should be exciting to see how it all shakes out. We'll be all over that Graham Rahal announcement on Sunday and see if that actually amounts to anything. And of course, I'll be covering the rest of this Music City Grand Prix weekend. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more motorsport content, and I will see you in the next video.